miss the next episode of Our American Stories.
Weather brought to you by Mazda Heating and Cooling and Bryant, keeping you comfortable year-round.
For this evening, clouds will start to break with skies becoming mostly clear overnight. Temperatures this evening will slide from the middle to upper 70s down into the low 60s by tomorrow morning. For your Friday, mostly sunny. Warm with temperatures climbing into the upper 80s. From the Storm Team 27 Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Hannah Stutler.
This report is sponsored by Dell Technologies.
Dell Technologies Black Friday and July deals are live. Check out incredible savings on select laptops and more, like the XPS 15, powered by Intel Core processors. Don't miss out on Black Friday and July savings at Dell.com/deals.
Now, Ron Verb on News Radio 570 WKBN.
And from News Radio 570 WKBN, let's see, it's Thursday. It's 5:08 in the afternoon. And what does it mean Thursday after 5? It means it's time for the Legal Show, brought to you by Beatrice Kopp. That's right, for the next hour, what we've done on Thursday for 35-ish years is we bring on our attorneys from Beatrice Kopp and we answer legal questions. Any type of legal question you might have. Do you need a will? Or do you need a trust? How about an auto accident? How about a dog bite? How about medical malpractice? How about child supports, divorce, custody, DUI, contractual issues? Any number of things that might be going on in your life.
Ron,
auto accidents, property disputes.
Can you hear me yet?
Do you need some legal advice? Well, guess what? We offer it for you between now and 6 o'clock, and it's absolutely positively free. We don't charge you a thing. We just try to answer your question, point you in the right direction, and help you out no matter what legal situation or legal question you might have in your family.
Okay.
So I have two lines in Youngstown open, 330-729-9977, 330-729-9977, 330-729-9977. We'll get you on board and in rotation to talk to our lawyers tonight. 330-729-9977. So if you got a legal
family
question,
owns an Italian restaurant.
pick up the phone, give us a call, 330-729-9977. Now we go to the law firm of Beatrice Kopp, where attorney David Beatrice hopefully is standing by. David, hello there.
Well, I am standing by, and boy, do we have a surprise for you tonight. We have a surprise.
Is that firecracker back? That woman, that firecracker?
No, not the firecracker. I'm telling you, Frank Cassis is here.
What a great surprise. What a great surprise. Frank, no. You said it's a great surprise, Frank. Thank you for coming on, Frank. It's always a pleasure to have you. You are a wonderful surprise.
Thank you, Ron. I want to introduce you to someone. Be quiet, Ron, for a moment. And let me do a proper
Jim Melfi?
No, it's not. Well, Jim Melfi, he's sort of a regular. But I brought a special guest, an alumni from where you live in Austintown. Who now practices law in Cincinnati, but he's from Austintown. His family's from Austintown, and he's a constitutional tort lawyer, Matt Miller Novak, and he did the Nikki Frenchco case with me. He's doing a case with Frank. He and I are doing another constitutional tort case, and now we picked up another constitutional tort case. So he does First Amendment, Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, due process cases, equal protection cases, 1983 actions. Matt Miller Novak, who was got a master's degree in art and decided he didn't want to be an artist. He wanted to be a lawyer. And boy, can he write, Ron. He's really smart.
Well,
people from Austintown, they're produced, some of the people like you, Ron, they're just, they're not the sharpest pens in the toolbox.
David, I was just thinking when you were saying I was just thinking what you were saying about Matt and all he does as far as a lawyer. Boy, I tell you, he sounds like a pretty impressive lawyer. He's not doing auto accidents or dog bites or some guy that murdered some guy or any of that kind of stuff.
He does real law.
Lawyers that do that stuff. I mean, who needs them?
Yeah.
We got a guy that deals with constitutional torts.
Right.
Dave? Explain a constitutional tort to our listener. I'm going to let Matt explain
it because that's all he really does is that. So I'm going to let him explain what a constitutional tort is. Go ahead, Matt.
Okay, Matt Miller Novak,
a graduate of Austintown Fitch High School, right?
That's right, 1995.
See that, Ron?
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. What was that smile, Melfi? Is that like the year you were born or something?
I was 2.
Okay. All right.
I was
All
35.
right. Yeah. I could see it in his face.
Shut up.
All right. Yeah, I do constitutional tort. Essentially, Section 1983 is a 42 USC. Section 1983 is the federal statute that allows you to sue your government for constitutional violations. You can get your attorney's fees paid by them, damages, and other things. So that's a big part of my practice, and I also do some employment law and civil rights there too. So I've been doing that for a little over a decade since practicing law, and love it to death. And
He
that's how I
really
met
knows
these guys.
this area. Like he could cite cases off the top of his head. And we were working on Nikki Frenchko's case. He wrote a 45-page memo for summary judgment. I was reading it and I go, this guy's really smart. Like I couldn't write 45 pages of anything, let alone stringing together Supreme Court cases. And we won on summary judgment.
Dave, the difference between him and you is he's really smart.
Right, he is, even though he's from Austintown, where you are from. So Austintown produces the alpha and omega of intelligence.
What?
I'm just impressed you knew Greek.
Yeah. All right. So are there a lot of cases then, Matt, of people that are, well, let's just talk about the First Amendment. People whose First Amendments are being squashed. Are there a lot of cases?
Oh yeah. There's plenty.
Talk about some of them.
You know, here's the nice thing about 1983. If you win, the client may only get $1,000, and your legal fees could be a couple $100,000. That's the whole point of constitutional torts. And he could tell you story after story of government entities trying to silence people, and they don't have a right. The government doesn't have a right to crush your First Amendment right. And he gets calls from all over the country. We got a call from California, Florida, Nevada. We're looking at a case currently in Pennsylvania. Jimmy Melfi just brought a case to Matt that he really likes.
Tell us about some of the cases you've done in the past and how their freedom of speech has been squelched.
Yeah, kind of like, my I guess my true bailiwick is people getting kicked out of local school board meetings and things like that. So one of my big cases is Eisen versus Madison School Board. It's a Sixth Circuit case, and
that's one below the United States Supreme Court, Ron. But go ahead.
It's the most important one below the
Facebook or Twitter.
That's
Explain the difference.
Yeah, that's different. Yeah. So, sorry for those people, but those are private entities. And, the freedom of speech it applies to public actors and government actors, not private. So if you come over my house and you insult me, you're probably right. But if I want to remove you, I can. But on the other hand, if you go to a school board and you say something critical and you get removed, it's fine. So, Facebook is a private corporation, and they have a right to associate with messages they want as well. And if they want to silence speech, they can. They might lose support. Other people like Elon Musk might gain some more users because I guess anything goes there. So, I mean, that's kind of something that people just have to learn to deal with it.
Right. I mean, it is fascinating stuff, and it is truly a specialty to
a lot of
represent
open
people.
meeting laws too. So it's such an interesting field, and it's such a niche, but he's developed such an expertise in it. So governments have to have open meetings, and they have to keep minutes of their meetings. And if they don't keep minutes of their meetings and they don't have open meetings, for every violation, it's $500 to the plaintiff plus their
attorney. You can get attorney's fees in open meetings case too. And I guess the important thing to mention with that, I think when I'm kind of getting into parts of Kentucky a lot now in poor areas of the country. And quite frankly, I think the problem is people have had their speech rights silenced at local school boards and things for a long time, not realizing that certain attorneys will take their case and get their fees from the government. And, unfortunately, a lot of people feel like there's no way I could afford a First Amendment attorney just because I was kicked out of a school board. And that's not necessarily true. I take cases all the time on like a contingent basis if it's the right case for the right reason. So there is justice
how does it
out
work,
there.
Matt? How does it work? Like when public entities say, okay, we're going to go into executive session now because they're dealing with personnel issues. Those would be private, would they not? Executive session,
Yeah, there's
or
very strict
if
rules.
There's 8 reasons.
No, I mean, I want you to talk about the executive session, or potentially, let's say we're going to hire somebody or not hire somebody. And wouldn't that, even though it's a government entity, wouldn't that information have to remain private as well?
Well, there's 8 reasons you can enter executive session of local government. So, to be really nerdy, it's subsection G within the statute, and it's 1 through 8. And one of them is employment, but they still have to motion properly. They have to continue to only talk about that thing when they're in there. So you can't go in to talk about employees and then start talking about maybe, curriculum or something like that if it's a school board or other financial issues. So you kind of have to stay true and holy to the reason you went in. And I see a lot of violations where they say they're going to talk about employment and they're actually talking about something they shouldn't. And they actually use the executive session as somewhat of a ruse to get in there and do that. But yeah, I mean, not going to lie.
And what happens if the information at executive session is spilled by somebody that was in it, so the public ends up knowing about this kind of stuff? Is there a violation there?
Not necessarily. Local officials can share some things that they hear in executive session, and so long as it's not required to be kept confidential by law, designated as confidential, or it's not something would provide an unfair bargaining advantage to somebody in a contract negotiation. But most things, quite frankly, a government official could probably share. And they do. Sometimes you get whistleblowers when they witness unlawful stuff. I got a case right now where literally a police chief and a mayor wanted to retaliate against my client for critical speech, and they pretended like they're going in there to talk about employees, and they came up with a whole entire planned conspiracy with hand signals and everything to arrest my client. And luckily enough, there was a whistleblower that kind of came forward with that information, and we just filed First and Fourth Amendment case against that government like 2 weeks ago.
It's funny, Ron.
What was
Go ahead. When I'm scrolling through Instagram and I'll see people at school board meetings and they're sitting up at the podium and they go, "You know what you people are? You're all a bunch of fat pigs." I'll send those off to Matt. And they try to remove these people. You have an absolute right to call school board members fat pigs, to be critical of them. That's the whole idea of the First Amendment. You cannot remove someone because of the content of their speech. Now there are time, manner, and place restrictions. Did I say that right, Matt?
Type, place, and manner. Yeah.
I did. I said it right.
Yeah,
See,
not
I just
bad.
took
I mean,
a
the
bar
order
exam
the
not
order
too
was
long ago.
questionable. Yeah. I would have knocked you down a point on an essay, but other than that, it wasn't too bad.
And Matt, I'm going to
Yeah.
I'm going to caution you a little bit. I mean, I understand you're a freedom of speech guy, but when you're talking about chubby people, I just want to remind you, Dave,
Yeah.
as a young child, had to go to the Husky department
Yes.
with
Yeah.
his mother, and it
Yeah.
still
I've
haunts him to
never-
this day. So,
To this day.
When David said
be
fat
careful.
pigs, I was judging him too. I mean, this is a time of body positivity, and we really shouldn't be saying stuff like that. But
Right,
but
right.
that is
but that Husky
truly,
thing
yeah.
haunts him to this
Matt,
day.
Matt
Yeah.
tells me about
Yeah.
some of the cases he has,
Yeah.
and they're so interesting. Like these people just get pushed around by government officials, and in comes Matt, and they're so mad that he sues them, and he could cite these cases. And there was a case currently. He goes, Dave, we really got to watch this case before the United States Supreme Court. I said, what is it, man? He told me, and I go, did they rule yet? And he goes, oh yeah, it's really going to help us. And he's citing it, and I'm like, my God, he knows this stuff. But how he could like cite not only the case name, but like the site,
The citation.
Jimmy. He's a little freakish like that. I think it's the art school teaching. I think it's the master's degree in art. I think that's
Mhm.
probably what he's like Picasso. He can sort of paint stuff. Like you don't know what he's doing, and he flips it around and it's this picture of someone.
It's an attention to detail.
Yeah, it's more than that.
Right, but I mean, Matt, it would be covered by
Yeah.
freedom of speech. Let's say for somebody to make fun of another person with talking about their broken dinghy for over a year, and people remembering it and laughing
why
about
do
it
you
when they
have
see
to
him out in
bring
public.
up- we haven't talked about the dinghy in a while. That we have moved on from the dinghy.
I haven't.
I know,
I
but
mean,
I
didn't
just
even
wanted to
know
make
about
sure
it
it was-
until now.
Well, I just wanted
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure it was covered under the freedom of speech of
It
They've had a
is.
broken
Let's
dinghy
see if
for
we have
well
any
over a
people
year.
That have First Amendment questions today.
All right, we can do that. Before I do, what was his initial reaction, Matt? Your reaction when you heard about this Nikki Frenchko case that you guys took to trial? I mean, it was pretty outlandish
Yeah.
what they did to her.
Yeah, no, it was one of those things. I saw the video, and yeah, it just was stupid. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even know what to say. I mean, it's obviously things have worked out well for us, and they should have. You just can't punish your political opponents for saying that and demand they apologize and arrest her for not apologizing. So normally, again, it's people in the public that come in there and maybe call names and kind of throw some shade. That's a pretty young thing to say. Was that pretty good?
That's
Melfi?
hip. That's real
great.
hip.
Yeah. So I said throw some shade.
Let's throw some shade.
That it means
You
like
wouldn't
insult
understand.
somebody.
Oh, really,
Yeah,
Frank? I wouldn't
yeah.
understand. Why don't you throw it at me?
I just
And-
did.
He threw
Well,
shade
Dave,
at you.
Dave,
Yeah,
Dave.
yeah, he did throw some shade.
Hey,
Yeah. So
you
it's
don't think I
normally
have
that.
Riz,
So
huh? You don't think I have Riz? Is that it, Frank? You don't even know what that means, do you?
Hey, Frank.
Yes, sir.
I don't know what it is,
would
but I
it
know
be
you don't
throwing
have
some throwing some shade, Frank, would be like when I talk about Dave's broken dinghy, right?
yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah.
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 Okay, thank you, Frank. Okay,
You're welcome.
just checking.
Yeah.
All right, so you want to take some legal calls, Dave?
Yes, and if anyone has First Amendment questions, fire them away, or any other constitutional torts. That's a really subspecialty in the law, and there's not a whole lot of lawyers that do it well. And Matt does it about as well as anyone else. And I'm proud to say he's from the Mahoning Valley, and he's one of the leading constitutional tort lawyers in Ohio. I mean, we not only
That's a big-
we not only won Nikki's case, but the judge said we don't even have to have a trial. He gave us summary judgment and stripped them of their qualified immunity, which was really he wrote an 80-page decision. Okay. And now we're in the Sixth Circuit
Mhm.
Court of Appeals, right below the United States Supreme Court. And we're going to be writing briefs on that case soon. Or I
Yeah.
should say Matt will be, and I'll be just reading them.
Everybody needs arm candy. So it's okay.
How about that,
Yeah,
Ron? I
yeah.
just was referred to as arm candy.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know about the broken
Right,
dinghy,
right.
so I don't know. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
kind of like hardtack that someone left in the car too long or something like that. But yeah, no. Yeah. Well, that was nice
All
of
right,
David
well-
to say, but quite frankly, Nikki did she contributed by getting arrested. So I don't want to leave her out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was shocking to see that happen. And really, I commend you for doing what you're doing, because you're standing up for when a government entity basically is in the wrong against its citizens. And somebody needs to stand up to that and correct them. So kudos to you as far as that goes. All right, so let's take some legal calls on anything and everything. You're on the air with our attorneys tonight. Hello there.
Howdy, gentlemen. How you doing tonight?
Good. What's
How
your
are you?
question?
So glad you're here and not in Florida. I have a small claims court question. I won a case a year ago in 1 month in Southern Small Claims against a moving company.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, the mover refuses to pay. And I contacted the prosecutor, left voicemail 3 different times to find out how I can garnish his resources, and never heard back.
Well, the prosecutor.
Secondly,
wait a minute. Let me
the
answer that
acting
question.
attorney.
The
Well, I don't
prosecutor
answer. Go
doesn't
ahead,
have
Dave.
to.
All right.
That's not his job. That's a civil matter.
Okay.
So you can bring him in for a debtor's exam and find out where he has assets. But trying to attach those assets, you might need the assistance of a lawyer. Go ahead,
Okay.
what's your
Even
next
though he
question?
has a business.
Even though he has a business. That's
Yeah,
correct.
The acting attorney denied my application for indigency because I'm on Social Security and I receive food stamps, and he denied it. So I had to pay the $80 for the court costs. So I filed a complaint with the disciplinary counsel with the state Supreme Court, and their chief assistant disciplinary counsel wrote back saying that they couldn't determine if the attorney incorrectly applied Ohio Administrative Code in making his determination. And they said because of that, they are closing their file.
All right, hang on, David. Hang on. Caller, hang on. Stand by. We'll come back right after the headlines at 5:30 and pick it up with this caller and your call straight ahead.
Our iHeartRadio Music Festival.
you this, but it would have been a clerk of courts, and I don't know if that's an ethical violation. But there is a thing called informa pauperis. Am I pronouncing
Yeah,
that?
it's form of pauperis. You can sometimes apply to have
The fees
certain court
waived.
fees waived, but that's about it.
Yeah, that's not an ethical violation, though. Okay. I wish you well. Is he still there, Ron?
Informal pauperous.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You heard what he said, caller? Did we
it's
answer your
Latin.
question? I take it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in the
No, I
Supreme
have to
Court,
look up
if you
what
go
that
to the
is.
Ohio
Thank you for your
Supreme
help.
Court
Thank you.
website, they have sections in there about going to small claims court and what you can do. So I suggest you utilize the resources that are on the World Wide Web. All right, Ron,
Right.
we have another question.
Yes, we do. You're on the air with our attorneys tonight. News Radio 570
Invading my
WKBN.
space.
Hello.
Hey, good evening.
Stop.
The pleasure. Thank you for taking my call. It's great to talk to y'all, and I'm glad y'all are here to do what you're doing. So my question is medical. Unfortunately, it's not constitutional. I started off, I had a plantar's wart underneath my foot, and it had gotten infected a little bit, and I went and saw the doctor.
Yeah.
And after digging around for a while, for months, he told me that I needed surgery. So he took bones out in the front of my foot. After that, it got 100 times worse. 6 months later, I had to go back in for more surgery where he put hardware in, and I ended up from the surgery getting staph infection. And he told me after biopsy that everything was all right, which wasn't. My toe ended up rotting out. I had to get it cut off. After that surgery, and I'm not a diabetic, after that surgery, from a different doctor, things just got completely worse, and I just don't know. I'm living a 3-year nightmare, and I don't know
All right, when is the
where I
hold up a
stand
second.
or stand anywhere. No
Hold-
pun intended.
Hold up a second. So, did you have part of your foot amputated?
The toe.
Yes, sir. Yeah,
Which toe?
they took off the big toe.
Oh my
And
God!
after the hardware, they said from putting the hardware in, I got staph infection, and the doctor who was treating me that put the hardware in kept saying everything's okay, there's no problem.
Okay.
Pain was outrageous, and then
All right, listen.
I went to
caller. Quiet.
Yeah.
Listen to Attorney Beatrice.
When is the
right,
last
bud.
time you treated with the doctor that you feel is responsible for getting your big toe amputated?
when was the last time?
Yes.
Yeah, it was.
It
It was. Well, I know there's like a year thing, but it'd be like a year and 4 weeks right now.
Yeah, you're
But
out of luck.
I'm still under care because
No,
I'm with that other doctor who had to do the amputation.
well,
they
that
both
doctor,
work for me.
that doctor didn't.
I
do
found out
anything
that they
wrong.
both work for the same place, so I don't know.
What? Wait a minute. They both work for the same company.
Yeah, same company. I had no idea about that.
So if it's the
but,
same
yeah.
company, the statute has not run. If you're still treating with the same company, but you need to come in, make an appointment,
Right.
and see us. Having a big toe amputated, that's a pretty serious
Well, for warts.
plantar warts.
Yeah.
You didn't hear.
And now,
Yeah.
wait, and now on top of that, the whole
Your
the
whole
infection
gait
is so
off.
bad. Like I have a hole on the bottom of my foot that they're trying to treat from doing the surgery that they did, and I might lose my foot. It's crazy.
Yeah, you better give us a call.
Yeah.
You got time.
All right.
You have time limitations, though, caller. But if they all
All right,
work
so,
for the same
right.
place, if you're still under care of the same place, the statute never runs out. Okay.
All right, so listen to what I'm going to tell you, caller, and pay attention. All right, when Dave
I'm
says give him a call, that isn't a week from today. Call the office tomorrow
And
because
ask
you
to
have
speak
time
to Kim.
limitations. You want
And
to talk
tell
to Kim?
I told you to call. Okay.
Do you understand?
I'm listening.
All right, so call tomorrow. Ask for Kim. Tell Kim Dave told you to call. You're under some strict time restrictions, and they want to make sure they don't miss those deadlines.
Right.
Okay.
All right, may I have a phone number?
330-746-8484.
330-746-8484. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for calling. Ron,
All
you know
right,
what else
because,
is going to happen that he lost his big toe? His gait's going to come off. And so his gait's going to be affected, which is going to affect his hips. I didn't realize how important your big toe was until I broke my big toe, and I'm still worrying a sandal.
You know what? I failed to ask him because he had mentioned about his that he lost his big toe. And I don't know, at any time during that call, did he call a tow truck, Dave? Do you know?
I only didn't, Ron, but I almost lost my big toe because I broke it.
Mhm.
I ignored it. And I went to the doctor and he took out a scalpel.
And
Well, it wasn't pretty.
do you still have your toe?
I still have my toe, but if I had waited another 2 days, he said he'd have been amputating that toe. That's how bad it
Really?
got. Yeah. Don't, if your big toe gets broken, that's different than like your pinky or your finger or something. I just put some tape around it, kept washing the boat.
Some tape.
A lot of tape.
All right. So you ignored it and it got worse.
A lot worse. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Have you
now
ever
I'm
thought
still
maybe
in a
it's
sandal. And this happened back in May. What is it, July? Yeah.
you know, wait a minute. You're telling me you're walking around with a sandal on?
It's not any sandal.
It's
It's a
a
Birkenstock.
And
yeah.
Frank, what did you say? You know, he went through more tape than a Division I football program in an entire season.
When I had to put
I mean,
tape on it and put it in the boot, I was in a boot for almost 4 weeks.
Are you wearing shoes now?
I'm wearing a right shoe on my right foot and a Birkenstock open-toed on my left foot because I'm not allowed to have anything on top of my toe right now.
And his Birkenstock's invading my space.
And it's in a white sock too, by the way.
White
I just
sock.
thought that that has
It's
to be
grayish.
pointed out.
It's a grayish. It matches my
It's
suit.
yeah.
The sock's a little too light.
Look
Yeah.
at Frank's socks.
So like when it rains out, doesn't your foot get wet, or when it?
Yes.
Would-
Yes.
Mhm.
It gets wet. Okay. It's happened. I've
Mhm.
stepped in a puddle and got my foot wet. Okay. What
You
else do you
get,
want to
you
make
get,
fun
you get a
of me
free hacky sack with every legal consultation
about?
at Beatrice and Cop with David. And
I mean,
his
if you wouldn't,
Birkenstocks.
if you wouldn't mind, Frank, if you could gaze down at Dave's foot, could you describe it for our listeners?
Yeah. So I call it a Jerusalem jogger.
Oh
and
my God.
you know, it's
a sandal.
it's
a
really
Birkenstock.
interesting, Ron, because we
You
go
shouldn't-
into
you're not supposed
we
to
go
wear 'em
into
with
court with like just all kinds of clients, civil clients,
Lawyers are
criminal
making
clients.
fun of me. They're taking pictures
And
of
Dave
my foot.
goes up to the podium in front of a judge, and he's got a right foot with a dress shoe on it. It's a very nice dress shoe, and then his left foot. You never know what you're going to get. You don't know if his socks are going to match. You don't know if he's going to wear a sock. You don't know, but it's really unique.
Yeah. Hopefully, in a week, I'll be able to start wearing a shoe again.
He said that 2 weeks ago
Yeah. I lost my whole toenail.
Mhm.
Whole
and
thing.
sent me a picture of it.
It's pretty cool when you
Well,
lose
that's-
your toenail because the whole thing came off.
Are you
I'm
still
sure
in a
Frank
lot of
loved
pain,
it.
Dave, or is it healing?
No, I went in there last week or 2 weeks ago, and I took my left shoe with me, and I said, "Doc, hope springs eternal," and he goes, "Well, hope doesn't spring eternal here." He goes, "You're going to be 65, and a 65-year-old man's bones don't heal as well as a 38-year-old man's bones, so you're going to keep the sandal on the Jerusalem jogger." I think you referred to it as, Frank.
It's biblical.
Yeah.
That is
We have any more calls, Ron?
Yeah, we do. But man, I'm telling you, that's the vision of that is troubling to even me. You're on the air. Hello.
Stephen Cropper's has a nice card.
Stop. You're on.
Every week, Ron.
You're on
he
the air.
texts you.
Yeah, he's just a crazy guy. You're on the air. Hello. Line one.
Caller, are you there?
Well, give him a second to come back.
Hello?
Yes,
Hello.
go ahead, sir.
Does Dave Beatrice determine acts of God?
What?
In what sense, sir?
I hope not.
I know. No, I think an act of God is like a thunderstorm hitting a tree, force majeure, and the tree then falls over and hits you. No one's at fault, usually. There's always exceptions to the act of God rule. Is that what your question is, caller?
What if water backs up in your yard?
Well, it would depend on why the water is backing up in your yard. If the public sewer system was clogged, or the city did something, you possibly could have a case against the city. But they have insurance first, so you got to go first to your insurance. Then only can you go after a government agency. So they still have some immunity out there for any torts that a government does. You have to first you have to first use up your insurance.
All right. So did you get what he said? How did the water back up, caller? Was it a heavy rain or something?
Yes, rain coming out of the sky.
Okay, so your yard
That's
got
generally
thank
an act
God.
of God.
Thank God.
Rains.
Yeah, that would be terrible if it came from somewhere
Noah,
else.
I want you
Yeah.
to build me an ark.
Well, it doesn't look like you got much.
Hello?
Yeah, it doesn't look like you got much of a case
Right,
if
no.
it's just rain coming from the sky.
Yeah, that's an
Yeah.
act of God.
Right. All right. Sometimes there's, suing somebody is not always the remedy.
Well,
I guess.
Ron,
You're-
we've been doing this 34 years, and I'm surprised
Right.
we haven't had a trick
Hello?
question today.
There you go. You're on the air, caller. Hello.
Hey, Ron, I ain't got a question. I just came down Tibbetswick Road. You may want to avoid 422 and Tibbetswick Road and Robbins Avenue. There's some kind of major spill in the middle of the road.
Okay, well, we'll let people know that. Thank you, caller. Do we have another
Yeah, they
caller?
got the
Rob?
fire department out there right now. Got everything blocked off. All right, bye.
Thank you.
All
bye.
right.
Okay.
All right.
See, we
so
take
we
care
have
of it all.
to-
Your legal calls, your emergency calls, the act of God. But we haven't had a tree question yet, Ron. I'm
That's a
inviting
good
First
Samaritan.
Amendment questions. I'm
yeah,
inviting
but-
people that want to go to the school board and swear at their school board members. That's the kind of call.
I feel like that guy
Summertime.
he just auditioned for like traffic copter. You know what I mean? Like it's like an audition. He's just like traffic.
Well, most
422.
people, the majority of people, hopefully, will not have First Amendment issues. I mean, a lot of
You'd
people
be
don't go to these type of
surprised.
meetings.
You'd be surprised.
Well, yeah, but it's not the
Really?
hot topic right now. We're in
Yeah.
summer. You got to get into the
I mean,
fall. You'll get all those.
yeah.
We'll bring Matt back in
Oh,
the
yeah.
fall. He'll get
Yeah.
a million.
You get a million cases.
Now,
Yep.
do these change, Matt? I mean, from state to state? I mean, do you represent people in all these different states?
I can, yeah, I can get someone kind of like local to serve, and I can pro-hoc into the federal court. But I mean, there are some differences between different circuits and how they interpret some things. Certainly. So
let me
But it-
let me decipher for the callers. When he said pro hoc, he meant pro hoc vice, which means it's Latin for I'm not licensed in this jurisdiction, but I'll get a local lawyer and I'll ride shotgun with him. That's pro hoc vici. And the different circuits are so there's a
Isn't it
sixth
for a
circuit.
limited purpose?
What? Yeah, it is for a limited purpose. And there's different circuits. So Ohio, Michigan, right, Matt?
yeah, I just want to be clear. That's not the direct translation of pro-hoc VJ.
What is it?
I don't know. It's not that long though. It's
I
just yeah.
But
It's-
Sixth Circuit
yeah, it
covers
is a
what states?
temporary admission for a
What,
federal
what,
court.
what states does the Sixth Circuit cover? Michigan,
It's
Ohio.
Michigan, Ohio, Kentucky, and Tennessee.
Yeah, so those states are in the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals.
Why Tennessee?
Because it's next to Kentucky. I guess. Like I don't know. I mean, it's just
It always
it's there.
confuse, you know?
Yeah,
I don't know why
They're
West
both- they're both-
Virginia
they're both
and
wide
Virginia
and
are
short.
not in
Yeah.
there. They're in the First Circuit, right?
What's that?
Virginia and West Virginia.
Yeah, I think so. But so Florida, your other office is in the 11th.
Yeah.
Yep, that's right.
Florida,
It's
Alabama.
Yep. I just had a
But
case
at these
down there.
meetings,
Panhandle, also known as Lower Alabama.
easy does it, Dave. Now, these other these
The
public
further
entities,
north
so
you go in Florida, the further south you get. But go ahead, Rob.
the entities that you're talking about, school boards and that, they have a right to limit you to how long you can speak, right? They can say,
Yeah,
okay, everybody
yeah.
gets 3 minutes or something.
They can have content neutral, like so viewpoint neutral, time, place, manner restrictions, like things like time, 3 minutes per speaker, maybe a half hour public participation. They can even go as far as they can actually have some content regulations, like your speech has to be germane to their business or something. Like you can't necessarily go to a school board, let's just say, and let's just go Austin Town Fitch and start talking about Area 51 or something like that. That's kind of outside the business they do. So they can have some restrictions, but they have to be mostly, for the most part, viewpoint neutral.
And can you also have, for example, just when you talk about decorum, that you speak politely, that you don't drop the F-bomb because there might be children in the audience, or there might be people that would be offended by that? I mean, is there a right to
That's
have?
a no bueno.
Well, I mean, it no question's clear, but theoretically speaking, for the most part, profanity isn't necessarily in and of itself something that could be regulated. But if it's used in a way maybe to entice a disruption or something, and that was your purpose, it could be problematic. But I mean, what better place and safer environment for kids to learn the F word than a school? I mean, it's, sometimes, and then the adults can explain to them what it means. And so, if they're going to learn it, that's the best place.
But generally, Ron, swear words are protected speech.
Yeah, for the most part, yeah.
I mean, but I mean, the entity has a right to have some degree of decorum, though, do they not? As far as, okay, we're going to speak at the beginning of the meeting or at the end of the meeting.
Yeah, it has to be
3 minutes.
narrowly tailored and kind of reasonable to serve a compelling government interest, which has been interpreted to be the efficiency of the meeting, and things like that, so the board can conduct its business. So, again, insulting a school board member doesn't really disrupt the efficiency of the meeting. It's about the viewpoint. Swearing, I mean, there actually is a Supreme Court case. It was back in the 70s. It's not, I forget the name of it. It was around the time of Cohen versus California, where someone was prosecuted for saying the MF word in a school board in front of children 4 times, and it was overturned. That was in the late 70s. And then Cohen versus California was a case where someone wore F the draft shirt into a court, and they were convicted with contempt, and that one was overturned. So, there's plenty of case law out there. I think the justice in that case, wrote, "One man's vulgarity is another man's lyric." That's a Supreme Court quote that has permeated, and I've used in a lot of my briefs. You can't punish people because they have unpopular beliefs. I would just kind of add one thing, Ron. Like the most important thing to remember from the Constitution, specifically the Bill of Rights, the entire point is to protect the minority from the majority. It doesn't have any purpose unless it protects unpopular viewpoints and unpopular expressions. Because if everybody agreed with it, or most people agree with it, they wouldn't silence it. The entire point of the Bill of Rights is to protect the minority from the majority.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Dave, I got to agree with you. I mean, this is
one of your alumni, Ron.
Right.
From your neck of the woods.
Right. I mean,
you guys represent the opposite ends of continuum of intelligence.
Right.
Matt would be on the right side, Ron, and you'd be on the far, far left near zero.
I was just noticing the difference in how intelligent he sounds just when I was listening to him talk and then you talk, and I thought, boy, that sounds.
Yeah. Ron, I don't know you, but as long as both of your socks and shoes match, I think
you got a good shot.
I don't even know that Dave.
The bar is not really that high, Matt. Is that
I don't think it drives you too much.
Yeah. Thank you, Matt. That means a lot to me. Let's take. I just think it's impressive that somebody from our area, Dave, has that expertise. Nationwide. Really, this is important to defend people's ability in front of government agencies to basically speak their view and speak their point, as opposed to some people that get in these offices think they're dictators and can just shut people down, and that's not the case.
No.
Yeah, it's a good thing. All right,
and the court's going to look at it whether it's a public forum or a quasi-public forum. In a public forum, they can't regulate your speech at all. I mean, you could say whatever you want in a public forum. The government cannot shut. Out on a sidewalk in front of the courthouse, you can hold up whatever kind of sign you want. And protest all you want. And that's why people walk in front of the White House all the time with those signs. You just can't regulate that speech.
Mm-hmm. Now, it would be different, though, like on a, what was it, years ago at Disney World, Walt Disney never wanted people to wear controversial shirts with, he wanted it to be an escape area for everyone that would come there. But that's a private entity. Would it not be, Matt, that he can put that down?
It's private, I think. I mean, I'm not really 100% sure, because I think it kind of, there's something down there where they have kind of like their own little jurisdiction or something like that, I know. But I don't know enough about Disney World, because it seems like an awful place to be for me. It's hot and long lines, and I'm an art person and not necessarily into that kind of thing. So,
how did you, in all seriousness, before I'll get back to phone lines, how did you go from, when you say art, I mean, we're talking painting and the arts and all this. How did you go from that, an interest in that and a master's in that, I believe Dave said, to saying one day, I'm going to be a constitutional lawyer?
I mean, it wasn't any one thing. I mean, it just, I was teaching art at a university, and I was doing well enough. I enjoyed it, but at the end of the day, I just decided that, the college professor gig wasn't kind of like for me. And so I just told my department chair that I was going to not teach anymore. And I went to the law school basically right across the grass. So,
how did you determine that was the area you wanted to go in?
It seems like a natural fit for him, Ron. And
but how did he determine it then? I mean,
I
when
could
he was
see it now. I could see how someone who is into arts or philosophy would wind up into an ethereal area like constitutional torts. It seems like a natural progression. Like,
then let me ask you that, Dave, if you think it's a natural progression, because most people that have listened to the show, and Matt, you might not be familiar with this. Dave was somewhat in the arts. He had a part in Hello Dolly when he was in high school.
He was a thespian.
Yes, he was.
I wasn't allowed to play football. My mom thought I'd hurt myself.
Yeah.
Right. So he was.
You just hurt people in an audience instead. I was kind of like, what happened?
So I mean, if it's a natural from going from the art community, Dave was in theater.
Actually, I wanted to be an actor. My dad wouldn't let me be an actor, so I became a trial lawyer.
It's kind of the same thing.
Kind of the same thing.
Yeah, there's a thespian nature to trials, especially jury trials. Yeah, for me, I mean, it was a different time. I mean, I think that, art and the ability to express yourself. I mean, Cincinnati's the center of, I don't know if you ever heard of the Mapplethorpe controversy in the Cincinnati Art Center in the late 80s.
No.
Kind of like, homosexual erotic art. And the guy was arrested for that. So, it's certainly my interest in protecting the people's right to express themselves freely and to not have that silence is a big part of art and controversial art. And, I think, sometimes we take for granted people who are on minorities, whether different sexual identities and things like that are starting to come out and, be able to express themselves freely, but that wasn't always the case. And certainly my upbringing in the art, it wasn't the case for people around me my entire adult life. So that was a big part of it.
But he's Matt is he's really smart, Ron. But then he takes his shirt off and he's got these badass tattoos on his arms that you never would think that he'd have these tats on his arm. And he wears a bow tie. And I can't tie a bow tie now. Once we settle Nikki's case finally, he's going to teach me how to tie a bow tie.
Really?
Yeah, because
you look foolish, Dave. You would look stupid in a bow tie.
No, I wouldn't. I'm tired of getting spaghetti sauce on my ties.
No, you would not look. You would look crazy. You'd like a fool in a bow tie.
No, I wouldn't.
You got to be the right person to wear a bow tie.
Well, Matt,
you're not that person.
Until he rolls his sleeves up, and then it just
Dave, let me put it this way: you should strive to be able to tie your left shoe at some point. All right?
Well, right now they're just two buckles. Yeah, just slide them on. Yeah, it's a slipper.
Right. Yeah. I mean, go one step at a time.
Do we have any more calls, Ron?
Yeah, but I can't get that image out of my head. You in a bow tie. I mean,
I've worn bow ties, but they're clip-ons.
Yeah, it's
not the same
thing.
All right, you're on the air on the Legal Show. Hello, what's your question?
I got two things.
Yes.
First one, I have to ask David Beecham. What the difference between a vulture and a lawyer is?
What?
It's a joke.
What the difference between a vulture and a lawyer?
Yes.
What's the difference?
The vulture.
Lawyer takes the wingtips off at night.
Well, you know the difference between a dead skunk and a dead lawyer in the middle of the road?
What?
Skid marks.
Skid marks.
There's skid marks
You mean-
in the skunk.
Yeah, there you go. All right.
I've heard every lawyer joke there is, okay?
The real question is, how often can a debtor or a supplier call a person? Okay, Spectrum has called me when I am 10 days late every day, numerous times a day.
All right.
Is that legal?
There are rules on collecting a debt.
Yeah, well, those are the federal ones apply to third-party collectors, not necessarily the actual creditor itself.
So maybe you want to pay your bill on time.
There you go.
And
All right, Dave.
there is a thing called smart televisions now, and they have free apps on the smart television.
He just cut you
up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the
Ron,
Thank you,
tomorrow
guys.
morning on WFMJ Today, I'll be talking about premises